Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who feels lonely when her partner gets sick and also seems to be lonely all the time in her relationship. But
yeah, that was a good
before
summary.
we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we're not. We're just two people with microphones and lots of feelings, no professional training whatsoever. So please take our advice as you see fit in your life. We're only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love.
All right. Today is Monday, so we're going to do our check-in topic. And this is inspired by a letter that we got from somebody named Peter L., whose pronouns are they, them. And basically, the question is, how do you navigate the idea of seeing your ex out in public, right? So after a breakup, how do you figure out like what you're going to do when you see them? Or, you know, do you not go to particular places to not run into them? Like, how do we sort of manage it? And we were inspired by this topic because of the particular details of this person's experience, which I'm just going to read so that we can kind of muse on that one and then go maybe bigger about like, what about exes? So they write that I recently ended a nearly 2-year relationship for many reasons, and it's been heartbreaking, but ultimately for the best. The breakup felt kind and respectful, and I ended things just over a month ago. The two of us decided that no contact was best. But last week, I received a text message from a family member of this ex stating that they were buying tickets to an upcoming event for my ex and that we should coordinate going to different showings so as not to make my ex uncomfortable. When I said that I hadn't even known about the event, but would buy tickets to the showing that made the most sense for me, a little defensive, I know, but I was caught off guard by the suggestion. They responded by saying that they had already bought tickets to the one showing, so I needed to attend an earlier one, that my ex had very few safe spaces in the city now, and that it was imperative that we attend separate showtimes because my ex was not ready to see me in public yet. This event is 2 months away, which I think is like a very specific example of like how to navigate through this idea of seeing your ex in public. But I'm curious, what do you think about the particular way that this ex is handling it? And then also like, how did you handle the idea of running into your ex after your breakup?
I appreciate this question because I think it's something we all think about. Even in big cities, right? You never feel anonymous. You never feel safe. And we all have people in our lives that we would rather not run into, whether an exes or not, like bad coworkers, you know, family members, etc. And I think I want to just acknowledge that first, that it is an emotional experience. It's hard. This is a part of dating. This is a part of breakups, is the idea that we cannot, unless we're willing to uproot our lives, we cannot like fully erase someone from the possibility of running into them, right? You know, no world exists in which we will safely never see someone again, unless, like I said, we're willing to uproot our lives. I also want to just quickly acknowledge that like it can be really triggering depending on how you feel about them, especially if you had like a negative experience with them, if they were an unhealthy partner, or if you see them happy or with someone else and it sends you spiraling. Like, this is hard. I want to acknowledge that it's hard before I say what I'm about to say, which is that we can. This is a part of dating, and we can be prepared for it. We can make choices around our own actions and our own boundaries and decision making to help protect us. But unfortunately, we cannot control things that are outside of our bodies and our choices. So even if the letter writer was, you know, they went on in the letter to be like, you know, I don't believe I was like abusive or harmful to this person. We had a beautiful and loving relationship, blah, 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 blah. Even if the letter writer was like the worst partner ever and was incredibly abusive, I unfortunately believe that we can't, like, healing doesn't come from controlling other people's actions. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying healing comes from forcing yourself to be in those uncomfortable situations. Like there are plenty of exes that, especially in the direct aftermath of my breakup, I would do anything to avoid being in the same room as them, even if I didn't have to talk to them, because it was so painful, so triggering, so uncomfortable. But in this particular situation, and then more broadly, in this particular situation, I unfortunately think that it's too much. This is too much of a control situation, whereas like, I don't know, I probably would have just booked the tickets. You know what I mean? And then like emotionally and checked in with my friend and be like, okay, we might run into this person because we live in a small town and the community's small, whatever. Do you still feel like going? And if we see them, what do you want to do? How can I support you? Do you want to go to the bathroom? Do you want to leave? Do you want to hold my hand? You know, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like this friend doesn't want their night ruined. You know what I mean? Like they want to go see this show and they like don't want to have to deal with the fallout of it. Because it feels like if they actually cared about their friend, they would be more focused on how to support their friend than like trying to control what the ex is doing. That's
unfortunately it. It's like everybody's got good intentions here, you know, and I believe in the idea that we all deserve the feelings of safety, but I also believe that the world will never promise us that. Do you know what I mean? And that it's more conducive to our safety and to our healing. It's more conducive to our healing to be like, okay, if I see someone that I don't want to see, which I will inevitably do because that is the chaotic nature of the universe, and because I can't control other people's bodies and choices, how am I going to react? Like, what are my responses? What do I have control of? Can I get up and leave? You know, can I choose not to go to an event? Can I, you know what I mean? It's a little convoluted, but also like this is a part of dating, you know?
Right. And that's the issue is like, if you don't ever want to run into your ex, then like you're going to have to not go do things out where your ex might be, right? Which is like lots of different places. You know, like I had a friend who refused for years after his breakup to go out in Minneapolis. He like seeded the whole city and was like, I'll only go out in St. Paul because he didn't want to like run into his ex. And I was like, that's a choice that you're making. But I get it, I guess, if that's like what you want to do. And I think that's like, that's part of the thing that you were talking about, which is like, sometimes you just have to prepare for things that are going to be uncomfortable. And also to not like conflate a sense of discomfort with a sense of like not being safe, you know, like there's
and we're talking about breakups that are not
absolutely
like of people who are physically emotionally abusive, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about like run of the mill terrible breakups.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if it's unsafe to see your ex, like this is an entirely different conversation about how you find ways to avoid that person actively, you know. But like I think again, some of us conflate the discomfort of seeing someone that we used to date with like a lack of safety or like a non-safe space. And like, unfortunately, right, like we have to sometimes sit in the discomfort of running into people that we don't want to run into. And because we can't control everything in the world, we are going into spaces where folks might show up or they have the ability to show up. And like, part of it is like, how do you decide what you're going to do when that happens? Or how are you going to decide to not go do things? And like, it's a bummer if you have to miss an event or not go to a place that you used to go to. Like that is a grief that I think that deserves time and attention and space, right? Like, and we can't control all of this stuff, unfortunately. Like you never know when you could be walking on the street and run into your ex, right? And then what are you going to do? Like you're just going to have to manage the discomfort of doing that and decide how you want to respond, which is like, you could just walk away, you could leave, you could say hello and try and be friendly. Like there's so many different options that we have available to us, and we get to decide what those options are, but we don't get to decide what other people are doing and where they're going to be.
Right. So last question, like what choices did you make in Minneapolis, you know, over the last decade, or not decade, you've been with Peter, but like in our 20s, how about that? In Sure. that decade, you know, how did you navigate this?
You know, didn't really care that much about running into my ex. Like I just went to the things, and then if exes were there, I would either say hi or I just would like pretend like they weren't there. Like I would just like ignore them, right? Like that would be my sort of way of doing it, right? Like there was an event that I went to where my assaulter was there, and that was like a very different situation. Like I had to leave the event because I didn't want to be in the same space with him. But again, like I had to make that choice for myself, how I was going to manage that thing. And usually when it came to exes, I just was like, I don't know, we'll run into each other. It's gonna be fine, friends. Like we can, and then there was one that like tried to talk to me a lot and was like cornered me at one point. And then I was like, I don't have to do this. And I just like walked away from him like mid sentence because it was actually very liberating for me because I was like, oh, I don't have to put up with this bullshit anymore. I can just like walk away. I don't owe this person anything. He is not entitled to me listening to him talk, which was honestly very, very delightful to be able to have that moment of like, I'm finally free of this person.
Yeah. I think that I like being a creative and somebody who like often went to like art events, poetry events and stuff like that. There would be times in which I would have to share space with people I didn't want to share space with. And I was either pretend I don't see you.
Yep.
I was either like childlike level of ignoring.
Oh, for sure. That is an effective tool.
Or if it was like, with somebody, like if it wasn't an ex, but maybe somebody who like, I don't know, my ex was dating or something like that. I was like overly friendly. Like I was just the bigger person in like a giant way where I was like, you can't ignore me and I'm awesome. Here I am and I'm fine with this. Look how fine I am with this. It was awkward. It was awkward either way, friends.
And you survived it, like you made it through.
And that's the TLDR of it is that like this is a part of dating, unfortunately, is like the aftermath and the discomfort of the aftermath. You can be prepared for awkwardness, but it doesn't have to feel good to be right? It doesn't have to feel good for you to know that it's not going to feel like this forever.
For sure. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for the question, Peter. Let's get into today's letter. It's coming to us from Lonely Yet Partnered, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the Selfish Void. Hi, y'all. Which is... honestly, y'all, I want you to remember the location that this person is writing from
right.
as I read this letter, because, I think it's an important thing to point out. All right. Hi, y'all. My question is one that makes me feel selfish and lacking any empathy. My partner, let's call him R, and I have been together for almost 2 years. Things, by and large, are great. We align on so many things, and almost all of our conflicts have been about external forces, while our internal way of relating to one another feels safe and sound. However, when he is sick, I feel like I don't even have a partner anymore. I have such a hard time putting into words. Yep. I have such a hard time putting this into words because I feel like such a huge asshole for complaining about my partner being sick and how it bums me out. But it does. For context, we don't live together and we already don't spend a ton of time together. I've expressed that I would like to see R a little more, but I'm most often the one who initiates plans, and I already feel like I am at my limit. He and I have both recognized that my seeing each other tank empties before his does. And while I would be happy seeing him multiple times a week, he's pretty happy with our once, maybe twice a week hangouts. I feel like I really start to miss him after 4 to 5 days, but we do okay keeping in touch with text here and there. But when R is sick, life just stops. He can have just a sniffle and it's bed rest for a week. I know he obviously experiences being sick differently than I do, and he works from home and can be a homebody without interruptions as well, whereas I'm a teacher and I have to go to work, sniffles or not. But I just have such a hard time not seeing this as a choice, even though I know it isn't. He doesn't have any medical conditions that we know of, but why should that be the factor that allows me to be an understanding partner? I just get so frustrated when he's sick or feels like he might be getting sick, because every time I feel like I have to mentally prepare to not have a partner for the next week or two. We don't see each other, which makes sense, but we also don't talk that much. He hates phone calls, so those don't feel like they're on the table since they give him such bad anxiety. And other than a "how are you" text, we don't speak. He doesn't really engage in conversations of any consequence via text. And he says that he just wants to have space when he feels sick, but I struggle to feel connected during those sniffly weeks. He doesn't even want to be cared for. I would love to bring food over and show affection through some sort of caretaking, but he really just wants to be left alone entirely. I voice this, but he says that he feels at a loss because of how he feels when he's sick. Perhaps these moments are just illuminating a larger frustration of wanting more from him generally, perhaps an underlying feeling of being rejected, as I want more while he wants less. And when he's sick, this feeling of rejection gets exacerbated. But I just don't know how to navigate this. I feel so exhausted and frustrated trying to express my love and affection, but feeling like it's too much. How do I balance my partner's needs for space with my need for closeness? Am I really longing for closeness, or am I trying to control my relationship? Sorry for the dramatic wording. Thanks for reading. Y'all are amazing.
All right, lonely yet partnered. Thank you so much for writing to us about this. Yeah, I'm sorry that you are feeling lonely in this relationship. I think it's hard to want to spend more time with your partner and have them, not want that. And then when you're not with them, these periods of not talking at all, that sounds really hard to navigate for sure. And I'm sorry that you're going through it. And I'm also sorry that you're questioning whether or not your needs in this relationship are somehow too much or selfish, right? I think we pointed to the fact that you are writing from the selfish void, because for us, nothing feels selfish about your letter, right? Like you wanting to spend time to have closeness with your partner, to ask him to stretch a bit to meet some of the needs that you have for intimacy and closeness doesn't feel selfish to us. It feels like a person whose needs are going unmet, who's trying to figure out how she can quash them enough to not have a reaction when, she doesn't see her partner for a week or two. So we're going to get into some advice and a lot of affirmation of the fact that this seems like a really reasonable response to what's happening in the current moment. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break.
All right, my darling, welcome back. I feel like, Sam appropriately was like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you're not taking your own needs into account, and I'm sorry that you're feeling lonely, yada yada." And I'm going to add to that and say, I'm sorry I'm about to give this advice.
Oh no.
Because truthfully, my darling, I'm just trying to be the friend across the table, at the coffee shop or mimosa station, to say, like, just so you know, I wouldn't be able to be in a relationship like this. Not that the foundation isn't, of quality, or I guess more importantly, I should say it, not that you don't have something here that's of value, but it sounds like a core incompatibility to me. One that I wouldn't be able to handle. You're telling me that you only get to see him maybe once a week, maybe twice a week on special occasions, and you don't get to talk in between that. It sounds like you have more of a intimate relationship with your coworkers or your students, or like once a week. It sounds like a garbage man or somebody who comes to your house once a week for some sort of servicing.
That's real.
And I'm apologizing because, again, I'm not trying to devalue the quality that you see in this relationship. I know what you said to us is true, that you have all of these great things that you align on. But I also know that this core loneliness that you are feeling, that you are, you said it so perfectly, it's becoming exacerbated in these seasons of sickness, but the loneliness is there the whole time. And And I just want to say, like, I'm not villainizing your boyfriend for wanting what he wants. You know, it might not be what I want, but there are other people out there who will be like, yeah, cool. Once a week sounds awesome. Not talking on the phone, barely texting. That sounds great to me. I need my space. But just so you know, like, heart to heart, this would not be enough for me. I want a partner that feels like an active partner, like a co-life doer with her. I want a partner that I can talk about my day with, who can listen to me complain about like coworker spats or how my feet hurt or how I'm worried about this upcoming family thing, you know? And I want a coworker, not a coworker. I want a partner that I can share common interests with regularly, like, oh my God, this show, we get to watch this whole season together and I'm going to wait every week to watch it with you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And again, I'm respecting everybody's needs here, especially yours and your partners. You know, like, both of these needs are valid. I just want to be the person who says, like, this wouldn't be enough for me. Is this enough for you? Because it's okay if it's not.
I am the type of person who, when I dated, only saw the people I was dating like once a week, maybe twice a week, right? Like, that was my preferred way of being in relationship with people. And I also recognize that, like, that isn't okay for everyone, right? Like, for some folks, that cadence wouldn't work. And even for me, as somebody who likes my alone time and wants the space to be able to do my own thing and maybe see my partner or my, you know, the person that I'm dating once or twice a week, right? Like, I would still have to find ways to communicate with them between the seeing each other, right? Like, there was still an expectation that I was, for me and for the person that I was dating, right? Like, that we were still like talking to each other every day via phone or via text. And so it's even with my like black cat energy, my aversion to like spending lots and lots of days with people in a row, like, I'm still like over here being like, yeah, I don't know if I could date this person either. like the idea that we would go for weeks without like a text message besides like, how are you? Like, that would be hard, because even though I like my space, I still want the partnership with somebody to be able to text them and be like, oh my God, I just saw a possum, or like whatever it might be that makes me feel connected to them in the spontaneous moment of like, I'm thinking of you, or here's a thing that popped into my head that I wanted to share with you, or here's an experience, right? And so I think it would be really challenging for me in this situation as well. And I don't think that makes me selfish. Like, I think that just makes me have different ideas of how a partnership should work than my partner does. And I think that's true of you too. Like, your longing for intimacy, your desire for closeness and for a higher frequency of hanging out, or at the very least, like a more intentional text message than just how are you, feels so reasonable to me. And the fact that you're questioning that and saying, you know, am I selfish for doing this is something that I think that we should be digging into, right? Who told you that your need for intimacy was selfish? Who told you that you were too much when you tried to love people, right? Like, where did you learn this? And I want to call that out because, you know, I think you're sitting in a relationship that's making you pretty unhappy. And then, you know, some of that unhappiness is coming out sideways, right? Where you're like, oh my God, I'm so selfish because I get mad when he's sick. That's not what's happening, right? Like, you are being underfed and you are, you know, having a really understandable reaction when your partner says, okay, I know that you're underfed, but also there's not going to be any food for the next 2 weeks, right? Like, that makes sense to me that you would feel hurt or panicky or angry because you are so undernourished in this relationship that you are, and you have been making so much with so little in this relationship that, of course, it feels like the world is ending when he decides that he's not going to let you have any contact over the course of the next 2 weeks. And so I just want to say, like, I want you to be in a relationship where your desire for intimacy, where your desire for connection doesn't feel like selfishness to you, right? I want you to be in a relationship where that desire feels like a need that's getting met, right? Like that desire feels like an asset to your relationship, your desire to talk to them, to be close to them, because there are relationships that work like that. You know, Sierra is a great example of this. Like, Sierra wants to go grocery shopping on your first date. You know, like there's so many things.
I don't want you to do that anymore, okay? Just like everybody sends me the grocery store memes. Yeah, I do. I would take somebody grocery shopping in the first maybe week of knowing them.
I know. And I can't imagine that. Peter and I have gone to the grocery store together maybe 5 times total. Like, and we have been together for like almost a decade at this point. We're like, it doesn't compute. And that's all to say that relationships and intimacy and connection can look different, but your desire for connection, your desire for intimacy doesn't make you selfish. It just makes your needs incompatible with what this man seems to be willing or able to give you.
Right. Exactly. And there's not much more to it, truthfully. We really just want you to know that you are, your needs are valuable. And if anything, this is worth a larger conversation with your partner too, because like, where do you want this to go? And I don't mean that in a relationship escalator way. You don't have to see each other more, but I do want you to feel less lonely in this partnership. And so how you go about getting that intimacy, getting that connection is up to you, but we know you deserve it. Thank you so much for writing, and we hope this helps, my love.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like to access our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship meme, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his music and podcasts. And remember, your needs in a relationship don't need to be constantly pushed aside in order for you to deserve love and connection. Partnerships are just about that. Having a partner, having a co-pilot, having somebody who can carry burdens with you, who can lean when you lean away, who can ebb and flow with you, who can give and take, and who can meet you in the middle of both of your needs. And if all else fails,
just break up.